the mighty god of thunder, the wielder of the hammer Majolnir, the champion of Asgard, Thor. The image of Thor is carved in everyone's mind, thanks to the Marvel adaptation of the Norse god. But as much as Marvel's Thor is inspired from the original mythology, there are some quite significant differences between Marvel's Thor and Norse mythology's Thor. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. In Norse mythology, Thor is the eldest son of Odin, just like it's shown in the MCU. But unlike the MCU that shows the goddess Frigg as Thor's mother, in Norse mythology, Thor's actual mother is the Jotun Jord, who was also said to be the personification of the earth. He is regarded as physically the strongest god in whole of the Norse pantheon, and other than Odin, the Allfather. Thor is surely the most famous god from the Norse pantheon, but of course this fame had contributions by the Marvel writers who were inspired by the Norse god and decided to make their own character based on him. When thinking of Thor, the first thing people pictures is perhaps the image of Chris Hemsworth, as the figure of Thor is generally regarded as a heroic character with blonde hair, blue eyes, red cape, tall and muscular, and of course with his legendary weapon, Mjolnir, flying across the sky. Well, as much as iconic those descriptions are in the modern day media and pop culture, the Thor from Norse mythology was quite differently portrayed in both physical appearances and character traits. The name Thor comes from the Old Norse of thunder, and his physical depiction in Norse mythology is described as a strong and bearded man with muscular figure who is physically the strongest of all Norse gods. And as much as you may like to imagine the blonde hair of Thor, the Germanic and Norse folklore mentions Thor's hair as red. This is because the Thor was a temperamental god, and his anger makes him a fitting character for a thunder deity, and perhaps the red color of his hair is just a representation of his fiery temper. The weapon of Thor is the indestructible and invincible hammer, Mjolnir, which was given to him by the dwarfs, Brok and Sindri. Although the hammer had a short handle, it was indestructible and have unparalleled power. Whenever Thor throws the hammer, it will never miss and will always hit the target, and no matter how far Thor throws the hammer, it will always return to Thor whenever he wishes. But as much as Marvel tries to establish the idea of one needs to be worthy to wield the hammer, this wasn't the case in the original Norse and Germanic folklore, as in the mythos, the hammer was simply too heavy for anyone to lift, let alone fight with it, and Thor was so incredibly powerful that only he managed to do it. For some, this might sound oversimplistic, and maybe Marvel did the right thing, adding the worthy element to the hammer. Well, for me personally, I prefer the Norse mythology version, which suggests the hammer was simply too powerful and heavy to wield and only Thor can do it. This makes him unique among all the gods, who is clearly the most powerful when it comes to raw strength, and just anyone can't be Thor. Although we all know about his legendary hammer Mjolnir, there is more to Thor's arsenal of powerful weapons. Other than Mjolnir, his strength is supported by two other pieces of weaponry called the Majolnir and the Jarngeper. Majolnir was a magical belt that doubled Thor's already sky-trembling and mountain-breaking strength, and Jarngeper was the prodigious magical iron gloves or gauntlets that he used to wield his hammer Mjolnir. Now, if we come to the relationships of Thor, Marvel also seems to twist those factors as well, for their own reasons. First of all, his love interest is of course no ordinary mortal, but the goddess Sif, the wife of Thor, whom Marvel decided to use as a side character. But in the mythology, Sif was by no means a side character, and wasn't a black-haired woman, but was the goddess of fertility, with blonde hair, literally made of gold. She and Thor had a daughter named Thrudr, means strength. Thor also had two sons, Magni and Modi, with the Jotun Jarnsaxa. In the MCU, the character of Thor is quite charming and light-hearted, and at times is an element for comedy. The original Thor in the Norse mythology was by no means a comical or charming character. The Eddas from the Norse text tells us about the character of Thor, who was a temperamental and angry god, and was the greatest enemy of the giants. He would smash anything and everything that would challenge him, establishing him as a powerful deity. Yes, Marvel's Thor also portrays traits of heroism, but the definition of heroism changes over time, and the earliest definition of heroism might not have many parallels to its modern counterpart. That doesn't mean that the Norse mythology's Thor wasn't heroic, as he's the greatest defender of Asgard and is called the protector of humanity, constantly slaying giants, the powerful enemy of the gods. He had defeated countless giants like Hrungnir, Thrumnir, Gerðr, and many more. He is destined to fight Jormungand, the Midgard serpent, the arch nemesis of Thor, and die at the events of Ragnarok. Jormungand was the son of Loki, the god of mischief, which again wasn't the brother to Thor, but more of an uncle to him in Norse mythology. In the events of Ragnarok, he will be defeating the serpent but also getting injured and will take 9 steps before collapsing and dying. With all that said, it's necessary to mention Thor is not the god of thunder. Yes, as much absurd it sounds, Thor in the Old Norse text was never once mentioned as the god of thunder, and much to your surprise is not capable of throwing lightning bolts like Marvel showed, and neither can he fly by clanging to his hammer. Well, yes, Thor is of course associated with thunder and lightning and rain, but it's never mentioned that he used lightning to smite his enemies. But thunder and lightning accompanied Thor's presence whenever he got a bad mood. Another thing is that Thor from Norse mythology cannot actually fly, but rather uses a magical chariot to fly. It is said that Thor glided across the sky on his chariot pulled by 2 goats, which is actually shown in the new Thor movie, and Thor hitting his hammer makes the intimidating sound of the rolling thunderclaps. The character of Thor in the Marvel comics is quite interesting, that features him with red cape, blonde hair, and a hammer that helps him to fly. But originally, Thor from Norse mythology stands apart in his own greatness, who reached his fame in the Viking ages and was immortalized by the Eddas of the Norse literature.